everybody, and welcome back to Flock's Nest Sports Podcast. As always, I am one of your co-hosts, Dallas, reppin' 52 of the Baltimore Ravens, Ray Lewis.
As always, on the other half, Brendan, repping 54, Bobby Wagner, Seattle Seahawks.
We got a great episode for you guys. I know it's been a couple weeks. Hopefully, we are through the inconsistencies. As you can see, our backgrounds have changed. I was not lying when I said we were all in the process of moving. If my background looks familiar, it should. So yeah, hopefully through all of that, so we should get back to seeing y'all on a weekly basis. We did, however, see that some of y'all went back and watched some of our older videos, so we appreciate that, your guys' support. With that being said, Brendan, we got so much to talk about. We're talking about all major fucking sports today, across multiple levels.
Yeah.
Plus, we want to try and talk. We're still talking NFC East. So let's get into it.
Yeah. All right. We'll start in the NBA, where things have kind of progressed the furthest, because that's where the biggest piece of breaking news was. This happened last week. The Denver Nuggets fired their head coach Michael Malone and their GM Calvin Booth in the same day. That was 4 games or 3 games prior to the start of the playoffs.
Yeah.
So unconventional.
It was a choice.
They made a choice. Whether it was a good choice or a bad choice, we'll find out.
So did you see the owner's Kroenke's interview?
Yeah.
He probably didn't deserve that.
Yeah.
Bro, you did it. Who deserved it?
So let's talk about it, because this is as if anyone's watched this before, you would know we are Denver Nuggets fans.
Yeah.
That is my team. I think Dallas has just kind of decided to root for any NBA team. I don't know if you've picked one yet.
So this is what I'm going to say, because we'll get into it a little bit better when we talk playoffs.
Yeah.
I think at my core, I'm a Nuggets fan, and that's my team. But I don't think I'm as diehard connected to them as I am the Avs or the Ravens.
Yeah.
This playoffs, I'm kind of rooting for the Lakers. I don't like the Lakers. I want to be very clear. That's not my team.
Interesting.
But I'm kind of rooting for Luka. I think NBA for me is going to be more player oriented rather than team oriented. And I know that's a little shippy, but that's probably going to be how I approach the NBA's fan base.
Nice. So yeah, as y'all know, I'm a Nuggets fan. Been a Nuggets fan forever. So this one hits a little different.
Yeah.
I can't say that I was happy with this, because I bashed the Grizzlies 2 weeks prior to that news for them, or 2 podcasts ago, for them firing their head coach a week prior than the Nuggets did, saying that was a stupid decision. You're a playoff team going into the playoffs. You don't fire coaches then. And I stand by that now with the Nuggets. But the more that's come out with this is they had to fire him at some point. And really, they had to fire them both. I'm talking about the head coach and the GM. Because everything that's come out has been the head coach and the GM hated each other since day one. They've not been on great terms. It's been toxic for the team. It's been toxic in that front office. It's been toxic since pretty much day one, since Calvin Booth took over after they won the championship and Mike Conley left. Not Mike Conley. Can't think of the name. Tim Conley. That was their former GM. Since he left. So Calvin Booth and Mike Malone just never got along, never really agreed on anything. And from what we're hearing, from what people are reporting, is it got so bad that you pretty much had to take sides. If you're in that front office on the team, you were picking sides between Malone and Booth, and it was creating this kind of war on both sides where no one wanted to give an inch, whether it was playing time, whether it was things that they wanted to do in free agency, whether they wanted to do things at the trade deadline. stuff like that. So I do think, from a standpoint of, there was not a real way for success with both of these people where they were. I understand firing them. I still think you wait till the end of the season. I still think you wait till the end of the playoffs, you let it go, and then you fire them both. Because I do think
Yeah.
that was the only way to fix the situation. And I do think that's why Josh Kroenke, who is the president of the Nuggets, came out and said that Malone, and he said Booth didn't deserve it, but Booth really did deserve it. But the owner has to say what he has to say. I do think Malone didn't deserve to be fired for how he's performed, but I do think he deserved to be fired for how badly that front office disliked each other and how much toxicity and tension they brought to the team. That's, I think, really what we saw. So unfortunately, had to come to an end. Again, Mike Malone won the championship 2 years ago, was the winningest head coach in Nuggets history. So kind of a shitty way to go, but at the same time, I do think it was needed. I would have just waited until the end of the season.
So I have a few, I'm going to say thoughts, opinions, spitballing here.
Yeah.
I'm confused about the start because understand I'm going to draw most parallels to the NFL as that is the sport
Yeah.
I am the most familiar with. But you could even pull from the NHL, any major sport. Okay. Jacksonville, the Jaguars, great example. No head coach would take the job because they hated the GM. They didn't like the way he had been running things. Was like, I'm not coming in there without a new GM. If the Baltimore Ravens tomorrow fired Eric DeCosta, we're speaking hypothetically, right? I understand the draft's a week away. That's not happening. I promise you, John Harbaugh has a say in who the GM is. So I'm confused that you can have a head coach that hates the GM from day one. Like, Mike Malone is an established winning coach. How did he not have a say in to where it's so toxic?
See, I do think he did. I think he did have a say in the GM when they hired Booth. Because that was the thing. Booth was an internal hire. He was, I believe, the assistant under Tim Connolly.
Okay.
So I think they had worked together. And I just don't think Malone really knew Booth's mentality going into building a roster. Because that was the problem. Booth just completely failed to build a serviceable roster
Yeah,
with
the
the
last
Nuggets.
2 years. And that's fair. And I'm genuinely asking because I'm still
I
I understand the intricacies of the game at this point. I'm still learning top floor shit. But I get needing to fire both. If it's that toxic, especially if in the locker room, if everyone's being forced to take sides, you don't have a choice. I totally get that. I do think you probably could have gotten away with maybe we fire the GM now
yeah,
and then waited. Like you had 3 weeks basically left
pretty
to
much.
fire Malone. So I just think, because you're right, I killed the Grizzlies for it. I don't think the Nuggets were primed for a real championship run anyway right now.
Yeah.
But I don't think you've helped that situation.
Yeah. So if you were sitting there going, we aren't primed for a run right now, and you just didn't think Malone's the guy, then sure, I understand maybe pulling the trigger a little early in terms of like now we can actually like spend a significant amount of time thinking about who our next GM coach combo will be, bringing them in
Yeah.
together.
But at the
But
end of the day, you are still the 4th seed in the West with the best player in the world
yes, and that's
entering the playoffs. Like, that is still a fact. Whether I think you're going to win the championship this year or not, this is still the state of your situation.
yeah. Now I will give the Nuggets credit in terms of they fired their coach and immediately won the next 4 games. I believe
Yes.
it was 4 in a row. It might have been 3, but they won their next. After the coach was
I think
fired,
it was 4.
they won their next. So now it's playoffs, and I will say their assistant isn't a bad assistant, and was somebody that could have probably got a head coaching chance at some point in the league. So if that was the thought process there, maybe. But at the same time, I'm sitting here going,
The timing's weird. The timing's weird.
it's so
It's
odd
bad timing. It's bad timing.
because yeah, now you're sitting here going into game 1 on Saturday with again best player in the world.
Drawing up plays on the sideline to help the coach. That's what you've got.
And, I actually don't mind that when you're the best player in the world and your IQ in terms of basketball is probably one of the best. Like, I'd say the same thing about LeBron. If LeBron wanted in the huddle to draw up plays, I would not question that.
I wouldn't mind it in any other situation.
Other
But in
than
the
your.
playoffs, you want Jokic focused on playing.
And I'll say, I don't know how much that'll affect his playing, but I do agree that I don't know if people would be talking about it as much if it wasn't for the fact that they just fired their head coach.
Yeah,
Because
that's valid. That's valid.
he would do it anyway. When Malone was the coach, he would still draw plays. I just think now,
Now
because
there's a
they
bigger focus on it.
fired their coach, because we have this controversy, we're going to talk about it more, and that's fine. I just think there is context that he used to do, like he did do this prior. There were
Yeah.
times where he would take the whiteboard and draw things, like draw up plays. So that doesn't bother it. Again, in the playoffs, it might be different, but that doesn't bother me as much when you are the best player in the world. Your basketball IQ is at another level. Like for me, I would have let LeBron do the same thing. I would let people with a high basketball IQ control the huddle, be the leader on the court because they know what's happening. And that's my
Yeah.
opinion. Is when you have a LeBron, a Jokic, players that are just wildly smart when it comes to basketball. I do think being on the court and seeing it from your perspective in terms of how they're running their defense, how you run your defense, how they're running their offense, I
Yeah.
do think that is a benefit to be able to draw plays at that point because the coach can only see it from the sideline perspective, not necessarily a on the court what I'm seeing perspective.
And that's fair.
But
That's fair.
again, I just like I keep coming back to this is such a weird timing decision.
It's a
You had
bad
a
timing decision.
it's
It's a
bad like
bad timing
it's bad
decision.
because you
Like,
have a week
okay,
left.
if it was that toxic,
You should have pulled the trigger
you
earlier.
should have done this months ago before
And I will say there
the
was
playoff.
reporting because I don't remember when it was because there was reporting that they were going to do it mid-season when they were struggling
On their losing streak.
because they were struggling. I think heading into the All Star break, and
Should
then
have done it then.
post All Star break they won like 11 in a row, and they pushed it back. I think that was the mistake. I
Yeah.
think you just have to pull the trigger. I think at
If
least
you're
the
gonna make
GM
this decision, like, I know it
because
sucks, and I know you can sit here now and go, well, he didn't deserve that. Okay, but this is a choice you made, right? This is the consequence
of that
of
choice.
running a sports
And
franchise.
really, I do think I said this to a friend. I completely understand them firing the GM. I did not think Calvin Booth was a GM. I think he wildly fucked the Nuggets franchise in terms of how it's built,
Yeah.
wasting Jokic's prime, however you want to say, because he did not build, in my opinion, a roster to elevate Jokic.
Yeah.
So I do understand sitting there going and firing the GM that I believe has failed his job. And I think you should have done that mid-season at the All-Star break when this roster just wasn't it. What I don't, and I just still don't understand how you fire a coach coming up 2 years off of a championship win where you know the roster's been kind of bad. Like the
Yeah.
draft pick, like some draft picks, all of Calvin Booth's draft picks so far have not hit to what we thought they would be. That would be Jalen Pickett, Julian Strawther, Hunter Tyson, and Deron Holmes. And I think it's unfair to criticize Deron Holmes because he had an Achilles tear in the preseason. Shit happens. It's unfortunate. Who
Yeah.
knows what he could have been this season. But Julian Strawther's been okay when he's coming off the bench. Jalen Pickett has taken a step up this year when Jamal Murray's been out. So respect to that. And then Hunter Tyson's been a non-factor for the Nuggets. And those are his draft picks. Then you go to his free agent moves, and the Nuggets don't have a draft pick this year because of what Booth has done. He traded three second round picks along with Reggie Jackson for nothing. So that wasn't a good move because you now have no draft capital.
Yeah.
You don't have a first this year. You don't have a second this year. You literally have no picks this year for the GM coming in unless they make a trade, which is possible. I'm not going to say it's not with the current state
But
of the
you're like
roster.
true like tradable pieces
Are all on,
are not on the market. Like they're not available.
or they are, but their contracts are kind of ridiculous, making it really hard to trade them.
Yeah.
Because I would not be surprised if the Nuggets sit here this year and kind of sit there and go, Jamal Murray, we gave him this lucrative contract, but he's never healthy. Maybe he's a trade piece. But with that contract and his health concerns, I don't
Who's
see a
gonna
team,
take it?
unless the Mavericks decided to do a Luka trade, but they don't really have anything to do that with now. Sorry for taking a shot at the Mavericks, but they
All
deserve
right,
it.
we're gonna circle back to them anyway.
Yeah,
Fucking Christ.
but that's my point. It's like you have people on kind of ridiculous contracts that aren't
Yeah.
producing what their contracts are worth, and that's part of the problem with the Nuggets. So again, I think it's just a stupid decision to fire the coach now. I would have at least tried to go out there and
I get getting rid of
fire
the
the
GM now.
firing the
Like I think if
GM.
you were gonna do both, you should have done both mid-season. Because you waited, you should have just like what the fuck do you need a GM for right now? Like honestly.
Yeah, at this point, after the trade deadline,
Like
you don't need a GM.
you do, however, need a head coach.
Yeah. So
Coaching is important, I think, especially in the playoffs.
yeah. It again, the Nuggets probably weren't going to go anywhere in the playoffs anyway. So if that was the thought process of, but I wouldn't say that because here's the issue.
Well, it's a weird way to tank. Like,
Because you've already
I
made the playoffs.
yeah,
You've already in the playoffs. There's like I think no chance the Nuggets missed. They would have to I think lose 3 in a row, and a team would have to win 3 in a row in order for them to physically miss the playoffs. I didn't think it was possible for them to physically miss them. They would have been a playing team, but I don't think they could have missed them.
yeah.
So for that, I just don't understand why you would tank at this point, especially when you have a team with Nikola Jokic and Jamal Murray. And despite what I just said about Jamal Murray being injury prone and not performing to his like best this year, he is the best playoff riser in the NBA, and it's not close. It actually is like statistically, he's the best at when it comes to the playoffs, taking it up a level.
Well, and he and Jokic are just a phenomenal duo. Like,
And your starting five have all won a championship.
I don't understand the league's current mentality around superstars. Like, they still need a decent team. Like, they need help. Like, Jokic is great, and I think he should be the MVP this year. Like, he still needs players. He still needs help.
There's a pretty insane
So
stat
to
around that.
not and then to go, well, fuck it. He's the 4th seed in the harder conference. We're gonna call time of death on this season. That's insane. That's insane.
Yeah, it's just a stupid move. But I do think one of the most interesting is bringing up the lack of help for Jokic. Jokic is one of the only MVPs in league history, and one of the only players in league history to play a certain number of games and not have a teammate that has been named to the All-Star team or to an All-Pro team.
I did see that.
I don't remember the amount of games. I think it was like 400 to 500 ish.
So he's
Don't really remember.
dragging this team single-handedly to the 4th seed, and we're gonna make it harder on him.
Yeah,
Like,
it's
I think there's a level. I'm perfectly honest. I think there's a level of taking the international players for granted in terms of they don't typically ask for trades. They're not
yeah,
very vocal. They're not very demand. They're not LeBron who goes, I want all of these people. They're not KD going, I want these people. They're not who's another one? But you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
superstars on teams that make a big fuss. They demand the team they want, the coaches they want, all of this shit. And international players tend to be like, I just want to play basketball and be happy.
Yeah.
And so because Jokic has been that, there's this level of like taking him for granted of like he's not going to go anywhere, so we can say fuck the season.
And I will
Like, you're
say,
wasting the one of the greatest seasons
in history,
in NBA history.
he's the third person to ever average a triple double. He's the first center to do it. He now set in the same season set the record for most points in a triple double, and then had 2 triple doubles in the same game.
Yeah.
He had the
So
first.
it's like, what are we doing?
Yeah, it it's honestly ridiculous. As a Nuggets fan,
Pretty
I think
upset.
you have to kind of blame Booth for building the roster. So I do, again, kind of saying this, I do think he deserved to be fired. Malone, on the other hand, I don't think it was. I don't think it was justified to fire him in this scenario. But at the end of the day, the Nuggets needed to do something, I guess. Whether it was a stupid decision or not, it was. We'll find out.
Yeah.
Who knows?
Yeah.
They could go on a
I mean, I
Cinderella
guess if they
run.
win the championship, then it's hard to like, you know what I mean?
Honestly, if they make
But
it to the conference finals, I think they would have succeeded expectations.
that's fair. That's fair.
Because at this point, I didn't think they were going to make a run anyway, and then firing your head coach, I'd be surprised if they make it out of the first round at this point.
Who do they play round
The
one? Fuck.
the Los Angeles Clippers, who I believe going into the playoffs were the hottest team in the NBA.
Yes, they were. Okay.
So
Could not remember.
it it's not going to go well.
It's not looking great.
I will say the Nuggets do at least have home court, which is something to be said for when you're playing at altitude.
Yeah.
That is about all I can say on the fact there. Yeah, the Clippers have won 8 going into the playoffs.
So
Won 8 in a row.
good luck to the Nuggets.
So, we'll see what happens.
All right.
Nuggets fans, it's not
Well,
going to look good.
moving on from that depressing update.
The Phoenix Suns, who didn't make the playoffs, which is hella surprising considering that team, they fired their head coach. and what I would say a proper head coach firing. When you have that roster
Yeah,
and the team underperforms, you miss
yeah.
the playoffs, you fire a head coach.
And there was a clear, I don't know, like a month ago, a couple weeks ago, that team gave up. They were like, we don't give a fuck. We're not in it. We're not whatever. We're done. KD's
Pretty
checked
much.
out. We're done.
So yeah,
So
they fired their head coach. That would be their like third head coach firing in the past like 3 years.
yeah,
So not great for the Suns, but that's what happens when you have KD, Devin Booker, and I can't even think of the Bradley Beal. That's their third, and it's not
so
working. So unfortunate for them, but
fired a head coach. You're losing KD. Have
yeah,
fun.
it's not great. Um, on like the better news, we have talked
Yeah,
about NBA playoffs. They technically have started. The play-in tournament was starting this weekend, so
yep.
that's fun. I do believe there's actually a game on now, or recall correctly. It was on today at
I
some point.
watched. I watched a couple games yesterday,
I'm trying to find the scores of these games,
and
but
I watched the Warriors game. The Warriors
yeah, the
playing game.
Warriors playing. They I do believe play in the next couple days. Um,
They
so
should
that's
play
good.
tomorrow.
Yeah, I think you're right. But yeah, so playing started. I know the Grizzlies won. I know the Bulls lost. I'm trying to find the actual shit.
The Grizzlies didn't win because the Grizzlies played the Warriors.
Oh yeah, no, the Grizzlies didn't win, but they are still in it.
Yeah, they have to win tomorrow
Yeah, just
or
give me.
today.
There we go. Just give me the bracket so I can
I
see
don't
what the
know
fuck's
when
happening.
they play.
I do think they actually play tonight. I'm not sure. But as the bracket stands, the plan went the 10 seed Mavericks versus the 9 seed Sacramento Kings. The Mavericks did win. And then the Golden State Warriors played the 7 seed Golden State Warriors played the 8 seed Memphis Grizzlies. The Warriors won, so they're automatically in. And now the Grizzlies and the Mavericks play for the last spot. On the west side, it'll be OKC versus the winner of Mavs Grizzlies, Denver versus the Clippers, the Lakers versus the Timberwolves, and the Rockets versus the Warriors for playoffs there. On the East, the 10 seed Heat played the 9 seed Bulls. The Heat won. And then the 7 seed Magic and the 8 seed Hawks played. The Magic won, so the Hawks and the Heat play for the 8 seed. The Cavaliers play the winner of that. Then the Pacers and the Bucks play. The Knicks and the Pistons, and the Celtics and the Magic. So should be some cool matchups. I do think the best matchup will end up being the Nuggets and the Clippers.
Yeah,
I just think those two teams have been. I do think the Clippers are a good team. I think the Nuggets could be a good team depending on the head coaching situation that we just talked about. The other one for me would be Lakers Timberwolves.
that is going to be my.
I do think that's a pretty damn good
I
series there.
still stand with. I do not think round one should be 7 games. That's still my opinion. Um, I think 5 at most. 5 at most. It's round one, for God's sakes. Like, let's move it along.
Yeah,
But
I doubt they switch back.
no, I'm sure that they won't. But yeah, I still think that. So I don't know if I will watch game one of any of these. Actually, you know what? It will be on with my new situation. Well, with playoffs going, GMs are giving press conferences and things like that.
Yeah. Yep.
So it's not news, but I wanted to talk about it because I put it in the notes.
Yep.
That Nico Collins, the GM of the Mavs, did a press conference. I use the term loosely because there were not allowed to be any cameras or recording devices. he simply allowed a transcriber to this press conference, which in its own right seems sketchy. Here's my thing. The more I've thought about it and everything that's been done from a marketing standpoint, I am not convinced that he had much to do with this. Here's my thought. At least that's what I'm hoping. I'm hoping you're not that incompetent. We had talked about this prior. The Mavs had just recently been sold. Like, Mark Cuban sold the team.
Yeah.
And billionaires are billionaires for a reason, right? But they're typically not great at running sports franchises because you don't know what you're doing. So I think a billionaire walked into the building, said, hey, let's take a look around, and went, so somebody's telling me we have to pay this 29-year-old that's not really in shape. Maybe he's 26. 26, okay. 26-year-old who's not really in shape, likes to smoke, likes to drink. $375 million over the next 5 years. And Nico went, yep, that's the state of things. And the billionaire immediately clenched their ass cheeks. Went, that's a lot of money for one person. That's like a lot, right? And he's like, yeah, that's, this is super max. That's what,
the maximum you can pay them.
And the billionaire called another billionaire and went, do you want this guy? And they went, everybody stay calm. Don't get so excited. Let's see. Sure. I mean, we would be open to that. What were you thinking you might want for him? Well, our team likes defense, and we just did a quick Google search on NBA defensive players, and we see that you have a player by the name of Anthony Davis. And he plays defense. He's a good defensive player. And the Lakers are like, no, he is. Yeah. So you want him? Yeah. Okay, we could do that. Anything else? Well, we hear first round picks are pretty valuable. They're worth some stuff. Sure. Yeah. How many of those were you thinking you might want? Just one, one player, one first round pick. Okay. Anything else? Maybe like we just swap a second round pick? We could do that. Yeah. Is that all you're thinking? Yeah, we think that sounds fair. Okay. Can you put Luka on a plane now? Well, it's 3:00 in the morning. No, I understand that. I'd like you to get him on a plane. Do we need to call the league and tell them we did this deal? I'll call them. I'll do it. The Lakers, I'll do it, because they're going to laugh at you and I don't want you to take it back. So you just put him on a plane. We're going to take care of this and have a great day. But his press conference, he just said over and over and over again, defense wins championships. We're going to win, potentially, at some point in the future, a championship with a defense. We need a defense. We're a defensive team. Defenses win championships. Like, bro, you've said the phrase so many times that it doesn't sound real anymore. It's like when you say bowl over and over again, it doesn't sound like a word anymore. It doesn't sound like a real statement. Defenses can win championships. Yes. However, no defense has ever won a championship without a competent offense. That's just reality. You still have to score points.
Yeah.
Right? Like, Ray Lewis and Ed Reed still needed a quarterback to get them points. The Seahawks, Legion of Boom, still needed Russell Wilson and Marshawn Lynch. The Mavericks still need to put points on the board. And eventually, you're going to see people that put a lot of points on the board. And your defense, by the way, we saw it. We watched it happen. I watched Luka's return game.
Yeah.
And that was depressing. That was heartbreaking. It didn't matter. It didn't matter. Your defense was irrelevant. I don't know this. Like, I want to be very clear that this is coming from, I don't want to call it speculation. I am hoping it is an intelligent hypothesis based off of my extreme knowledge of sports franchises front offices. That usually that incompetent don't last very long. And I know he's had some misses in terms of trades and draft picks. Every GM does. But to trade Luka at its core is a mistake. But to trade him for so little, I'm like, you didn't know what you were doing. You didn't know what you were holding.
Yeah.
When you did this. That tells me that's a lack of knowledge. And I don't think, I know it's the great debate right now is, can this ever be justified? No, because of how little you got for him. You have to win more championships in Luka's prime than Luka. That's the only way. But you're losing fans. You're losing money. And your GM is having entire stadiums chant for his job. I give some credit. He stood there and took it because he could have just walked out and been like, I don't really need to be here for this. But he stood there and took it. But like we talked about the Joe Shane situation, right? And parts of that I think you fucked up on. Shows kind of a lack of competency. But what should have maybe been said was, I don't have the money to pay Saquon because you, as the owner, made me pay Daniel Jones. As Nico left holding the bag, how could you trade Luka? Bitch, I didn't trade anybody. Like, I didn't do it. I'm just the figurehead. But this crazy billionaire that doesn't know what they're doing, they traded Luka.
Yeah.
So it's hard to like feel bad for like millionaires sometimes. Like, I'm not saying there are no situations, but it's like you do get paid for this. I just feel like there should be, I feel like GMs should have a little bit more autonomy to be able to separate themselves from certain situations. Because as Nico right now, say he got fired tomorrow. Now, I think as an owner, that'd be a really shitty thing to do, especially if this was your choice. But if he got fired, what franchise would go, that's the guy I want running my front office? Like, it's easy later in a closed door room to be like, well, they made me do it. How do we know? You know what I mean? So I just think now there should be some sort of accountability measure of like, this was my call, this was my choice, versus it wasn't.
Yeah. It's definitely a interesting situation.
Yeah, I
I
mean,
will give him
that's
credit.
word.
He has balls because he sat there and the other day
He took
he
it.
committed and he said, "We don't regret what we did," which hard to believe considering Luca dropped
Yeah.
40 on you. But you stand by your trade, kind of respect it. I respect you sitting there going,
I mean, you can't take it back.
yeah. You can't sit there and go, we shit the bed.
Yeah, call the Lakers. Can we just no, bitch. No.
Can we undo this? The Lakers are just going
No.
to laugh at you. Because they already are.
The Lakers aren't even going to pick up the phone. They're going to see the Mavs call and be like, you don't have anything else that we could want.
Pretty
Bye.
much.
Don't call again. We wanted to see if we can get him back. You can't. You can't. Like, Luka's Laker jersey is currently the number one selling jersey in the league. And it's the first time an international player is number one.
Yeah, it's...
You can't.
There's
It's
that.
crazy.
There's the people he brings into the building.
Yeah.
And there's the fact that he's a generational player.
And LeBron's like in love with him.
Yeah.
He and LeBron are meshing really well. Like, it's not happening. Get fucked.
It's still... I think it'll go down as one of the dumbest trades in sports history.
It was kind of funny. It's actually viral right now. Or it was. I watched First Things First, which you know.
Yeah.
After the Luka return game, after the Mavs Lakers game, Jason Kidd was like, someone compared it to the Babe Ruth trade, which I think is pretty awesome. I'm like, I don't think you have an adequate understanding of the Babe Ruth trade, but that's an opinion to have. Kevin Wild on First Things First has like a 2-minute rant about how if that's your comparison, you've got like 90 years before you can win a championship. So this is the dumbest thing on the planet. Like, that's not a good thing to be compared to. It's epically tragic. It's horrifically terrible.
Yeah.
Like,
that's not a good example either, because that didn't work well for them.
Like,
yeah, it's a dumb
I can't think of a time a sports franchise traded a superstar player in their prime and then got better.
I think the closest one I can think of, because I do think they won more championships after doing it, was when the Oilers traded Gretzky to Los Angeles. And I don't even think the Oilers got better after doing it. I do think they ended up winning more championships after. They won more with him, obviously, and the Kings
They
won a
just
couple
didn't
with
get
him.
like significantly worse.
But they also didn't like become last in the NHL. They didn't completely suck. And they did end up winning championships afterward. So I do think that's the closest example I can give you. But again, it's a little different because I do think Gretzky was slightly out of his prime at that point.
Yeah,
and
like the thought was
sport.
Gretzky was coming to the end of his career. It was not smack dab in the fucking middle of his prime.
Yeah, you're not trading a...
Not even the middle. Like, by age definition, Luka is just now entering his prime. Like,
yeah,
it's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. It's insane. I know we've talked about it a lot. We'll probably continue to talk about it.
So yeah,
I just am. I currently, in this playoff run, I'm rooting for Luka. It's not a Lakers thing. It's a Luka thing.
It would be a pretty awesome fuck you, though, if he goes on to win the championship this year.
And then, this is not my take. I thought it was funny. But he should then open a hookah lounge in LA and call it Hookah Doncic.
That is actually pretty funny. That's a good one. Damn. I don't know who
you don't.
That's pretty good.
Paul Pierce.
That doesn't surprise
That was
me.
Paul Pierce.
No.
Yeah.
I don't know what you said the name, and I'm like, oh, that checks out.
Yeah, he's like, you should, if you fucking win, you just open a hookah shop in the middle of LA and call it Hookah Doncic. I was like, that's fantastic. You should do it.
Yeah.
Have a fucking Mavericks dartboard.
It's so dumb. It's so.
Like,
Just have Nikos Harrison's face as
yeah. And
the dartboard. Yeah, I don't know.
that's crazy.
It's just such a dumb. And for reference, just because we were talking about it, the Oilers won the cup 2 years after trading Gretzky. And
Okay.
that was the only time they did it after trading Gretzky, I do believe. But they did win one after doing that.
They did win one.
So if you're going to get compared to something, you wanted to compare it to the Oilers.
Yeah, be like, and that's kind of their time frame is like 4 to 5 years.
Yeah.
But if you don't, okay, if Luka wins this one, we'll say this one, and that's it. And then within the next 4 to 5, the Mavs don't win one, you lose. Like, wasn't worth it.
Yeah, it probably isn't going to be
You
anyway.
have to win more than him in his prime. You have to. That's the only way you kind of justify this.
Cause yeah, I just don't think I can't see a way that it's justified unless you're saying to go on and win like.
I could have maybe respected the thought. We didn't want to pay him that much. We have concerns. But we traded the McLaren, right?
Yeah. For Civic.
For like a Bugatti and a Toyota Tundra. Like, okay. Instead, yeah, I compared it. This was mine the other day. You traded a McLaren for like an F-150.
Yeah, that's actually not a bad.
Like, it does technically have towing power. But I don't quite think it's got what you were going for.
Yeah.
It's broken a lot. It's not that great of a tower. Like,
it's honestly a pretty good comparison.
You had a McLaren. Like, it's not.
Yeah.
You could have bought a fleet of F-150s.
At that point, you might actually have a chance.
Keep rolling them out there. Just be like, okay, one's down, put the other one out. But you traded one for one, and that's not.
It's man. We could talk about, and we've talked a lot about this trade because it continues to be the dumbest thing in sports.
I think at least through this season, it will come up as it will be interesting. You know, Luka's due an extension, so
yeah.
I assume the Lakers will extend him. I did want to get back to really quickly because the only other thing I thought I had after his come home game, I don't know as Luka how you ever truly trust a franchise again. Like, you were genuinely traded in the dead of night with no warning, no heads up, middle of your prime. You took them to the final.
The finals last year.
Like, how do you ever feel secure again? A team looking at you going, we want you, you're our future. How do you go? Bitch, prove it. Do they do no trade clauses in the NBA?
They do, yes.
I would demand that. I would demand that.
I do think the no trade clause is a little different in the NBA. I think it's very weird because I think you can only have like a limit. It would be like a limited no trade clause. I don't actually know how it works. I do believe there are no trade clauses though. It's just,
but I just don't different. I just wonder as Luka, like how you ever really how you ever really feel secure again.
Yeah. Yeah, there are some, but it's very rare.
I would take less as Luca. I would take less money
For a no trade
for a
clause.
no trade clause. Now I wouldn't take I wouldn't go from the super max to you could pay me league minimum.
No.
But I'd come down to maybe instead of 75 a year, I'll take 65 a year.
Or I'm trying to think of who. You could offer him, because I don't remember when that contract was signed. But I think Jokic's contract is 60 a year. I think
Okay.
if
So
you
you
go to
offer him
60, match Jokic,
and we'll
give you no trade
We'll
clause.
put in a no trade clause so this cannot happen to you again. We were never going to do it because this was insane, but
for your peace of mind,
yeah,
we'll put it in there.
Yeah, that would be me. I'd take less than the Supermax for that.
Yeah, it's fucking insane, but we'll see. Man, it's
all right. Well, we will move out of NBA
to WNBA.
And into its sister, the WNBA. They had their draft.
I think it's so weird that they have their draft
a couple days ago
so quickly after they're done.
It's crazy.
Their turnarounds
Here's the thing.
are so weird to me.
I don't want it that fast, but I would be okay with the NFL's draft being a little let's move it. Spend too much time doing some fuckery.
You need to put it in between. The NFL draft's a little too far. Put it the NFL draft in March. Makes sense. Maybe push
the WNBA draft could be a little further than 10 days from the
end of April.
It's hard because then they start in May, I believe.
Which
they start
also
in May.
Just think you should push your season a little bit.
I kind of get it. You don't. They try not to. They don't want to overlap with the NBA at all. But because men and women's college basketball happens at the same time, you got to do something here. Just a couple highlights from the draft. I'm not going to get into the whole picks, all of them. That's what Google's for. Paige obviously went first overall, as expected, to the Dallas Wings. So congratulations to her.
Way to dodge how to pronounce the last name. I respect that. Because I can't do it either. I think
it's Bukers or Beckers.
I don't know.
I've heard it 6 different ways because I'm not 100% sure. I'm gonna move on. Went to the Wings first overall again, as expected. Really happy for her. Obviously coming off a championship win. I know we're gonna get into that in a second, but this was expected. I will be interested to see if she can have a similar effect that Caitlin had. The interesting thing to note is Paige was around in college basketball before Caitlin Clark. But with the injuries, she spent an extra year in college.
Yeah.
And then Caitlin hit the scene and everyone kind of flocked to that. And now, because the WNBA is getting more recognition, I think people are seeing Paige a bit more. So I will be intrigued to see if she will have a similar effect. I don't think it will be quite to that extent, but it will be interesting to see.
Yeah.
Second thing, Haley Van Lith reunites with Angel Reese. They were teammates at LSU. So she is joining the Chicago Sky. So that should be interesting. They play really well together. They play off of each other really well. So we'll see how that translates because whatever, not the point. And the final thing that literally everyone's talking about, I don't want to spend a whole ton of time on. I have one quick thing. Sedona Prince was not drafted if you have any background on this at all, she was accused of, I don't really know what I can say here. Misconduct. I think everyone says SA. Assault and misconduct by a few former partners and girlfriends. That's not really the story. About midway through the draft, ESPN had her on the board as a list of like best available. And when the analysts clocked the board, spent about 5 minutes tearing into her and how she should not be drafted and all of these things. I don't necessarily disagree with anything that was said. I'm okay with the fact that we're using our platforms to stand against these allegations and these things entering into sports franchises. What I would like us to be mindful of is that it's consistent across all leagues and men and women's. I understand that the WNBA isn't as popular, but that does not mean that horrible actions get rewarded in some franchises and leagues and condemned in others. So that is kind of it's the only take I have on the situation. I'm not going to speculate on her past or those situations. I have no information to do so. I have no knowledge, inside or otherwise. All I can say is if this is the stance that ESPN is going to take, it needs to take it consistently.
And we'll find out whether they do or don't.
Yeah. We're
There's
going to know
situation
in like a week.
In exactly a week from today.
And if it's not consistent, I will get up here and I will freak the fuck out. Because I'm okay with you doing it. I'm okay with that being the stance. But you have to be consistent. It can't be, well, football's more popular, so no. No, bitch.
I think they're just gonna not talk about it on the NFL side.
Because here's the thing, they weren't gonna talk about her. I don't think.
Unless he gets drafted, then they might.
But the fact that the best available popped up and she was on the list prompted the conversation. So we will see how that plays out. But I urge for consistency.
I don't disagree. I'm just curious. I think the NFL is just not going to say anything. I think it's because I don't think he's going to get drafted.
I think the NFL, I'm trying to think how to put this delicately. I'm not saying the WNBA would have drafted her. I'm not saying a team would have done that. But the NFL, especially with some things, the NFL has often caught itself with the hand in the cookie jar. And I think there's probably an either unpublished or unspoken. The NFL is all about the shield and respecting the brand that is the NFL. It's not just about the Ravens or the Seahawks. It's about the shield. So we are done looking stupid and being caught in these positions. So I can't help but wonder if there's this underlying kind of memo. Don't fucking do it. Don't do it.
Could be. Who?
Like,
because I guess for those of you that don't know what we're talking about Isaiah Bond, the wide receiver out of Texas, who was recently accused of misconduct, or however else just put it. And he's been pretty cooperative with the police so far. But there were other issues with him to begin with in terms of film, what he is actually on the field. So again, we'll see if he ends up getting drafted in the NFL, and we'll see what the ESPN analysts in the NFL decides to say about the situation. It's kind of what we're talking about.
I don't want to get into it too much. I don't know that Brendan or I know enough about the situation. But since we are talking about this, I am briefly going to say, if you are in this situation, please know there are resources available to you. And if you are struggling with your mental health, there are resources available to you. So,
because that's another one.
With everything that goes on in today's modern world, please know resources are available at pretty much the tap of a button. Yeah. And we urge you to use them. However, we're going to move on.
We will move into...
Yep. I was going to say, obviously, we're a little late. It's the 2-week break thing. So, but we are just quickly going to do a recap of the Final Four and final of March Madness.
Yeah, on both sides. So, on the men's side, obviously the Final Four was Houston-Duke. Houston beat Duke 70-67 in what I can only say a Duke choke job, because that was just
collapse.
Pathetic how they ended that game. Duke, who I thought was the favorite to win,
just
did not go well.
I picked Duke. I didn't know they were going to foul themselves and then stupid themselves out of it. So that's my bad, y'all.
Yeah.
I didn't know
that they were just going to...
They were like, you know what? We actually don't want it.
Yeah. The other game was Florida-Auburn. Florida does win that one. That one was actually a good match. That was 79-73. Neither team really... Florida did come back in the game, but I do think it was actually decently close throughout the game. And then the final was Florida-Houston. Florida gets the win 65-63, and Houston just watched Duke shit the bed and decided that they wanted to do the same.
And if you were a Duke player watching that game, you were like, we would have been champions.
Yep.
If we had just not had our head up our ass for the last 45 seconds.
Pretty much. And then Houston shit the bed. So congrats to Florida. I will say Florida was a good team. Florida has a couple fun players on that team. So congrats to them. They, I do believe, came back in the vast majority of the games they played in. So congrats.
They did indeed.
Congrats to Florida. Way to get the win.
Way to get to the dub. I'm not gonna say you stole it. I do think some things went right for you, but I think every athlete will tell you to win, you have to have a little luck on your side. That is part of it. So just congrats to them.
Yeah, and then I'll let you take it.
Okay. On the women's side, UConn beat UCLA, 85-51. I did watch this game for a half, and then it was on. It did not have my attention. It was very clear, very early, that
UConn was good.
These two teams should not share the court. And that's unfortunate, and I'm sorry, but it was just a demolishing. There was no point that I was like, UCLA is in this. They weren't, and they weren't quickly.
I looked at the score at one point out of pure curiosity. I don't know if I was gonna ever watch it because I was busy at the time. But I looked at the
Yeah.
score to see if I might be just pop it on the TV and saw the score and
Yeah.
went, well, there's just no point in that. Now it's there.
Yeah. Like,
It was because at that point, I think at that point UConn was up by 20, and I was like, all right.
yeah. I was
And
like, it's on. It's not. I'm not paying attention to it. Similarly, South Carolina beat Texas 74-57. This was another one. They were never Texas was never in it. I thought it was going to be close. I think through the first quarter, I was like, okay, got a little bit of a matchup. And then South Carolina just ran away with it. Don Staley is a great coach. And yeah, it wasn't close. It wasn't towards the end.
I wouldn't think it was the next game.
Like, they just kept pulling away. And
Yeah.
Don Staley was like, yeah, we have more energy. We have a deeper bench. And that was true. They also had shooters and rebounders. A lot of things that Texas didn't seem to have. And then in the final, UConn beat South Carolina 82-59.
Yeah.
And for all the shit, it was pretty much the same. Look, it was close through the first half. They kind of bounced back and forth on the lead through the first quarter. Second quarter, UConn kind of pulled away, but I was like, okay, there's a chance. Second half, it was done. I'm very sorry. I cannot think of UConn's head coach's name. He does officially become the winningest head coach in women's basketball. And UConn is the winningest organization. They have 12 championships, all of which won by this head coach. Paige was very emotional at the end, which I very much understood. Fought really hard for this. I was happy for her. Obviously, Don Staley would have also made history as the only coach to win 3 in a row, but it just didn't work out that way. They just struggled to shoot in the second quarter, and then it just kind of got away from them. They never really seemed to hit their feet right. Balls were going wide. Women's basketball is very different. They tend not to, unless you're Angel Reese, they tend to not really get really muddy under the basket. So if you miss the shot, you miss the shot. It's going the other way. And UConn just didn't have that problem. So congrats to them. Congrats to Paige.
Yeah.
It's a great organization, and she finally gets the championship. So, and she was rewarded for it with the first overall pick. And she's a great player. I think she'll have great success. Yeah. And we'll see what UConn and South Carolina look like next year. They both have some really talented freshmen on their teams. So it'll be exciting to see where they go.
Yeah, really interesting.
But college basketball is over.
I will say, I have one thing to say. I do find it very interesting when you look at the differences in scores between the women's and men's in terms of the men's Final Four was close. Like every game was within, like the biggest difference was a 6-point win for Florida. The other games were 3-2. All the women's Final Four, it was a 34-point difference, a 20 or 17-point difference, and a 23-point difference.
Yeah.
So, just a little kind of interesting. Nothing to really like glean. I just find that very interesting that on the women's side it was all blowouts to end the March Madness, and on the men's
especially
side,
in the final, like maybe in rounds 1 and 2, you kind of expect that.
We expect that. In the finals, I was a little like, damn.
I was very shocked. Okay, South Carolina versus Texas, I wasn't. I was like, okay, that I get that. I see that.
Really, the one
But
that surprised
UConn,
it was the UConn South Carolina one that
yeah, I was
really surprised me.
shocked that went. As I picked UConn to win. If someone had told me, hey, the line is plus 20, I'd have been like, I don't think so. Like, nobody would take that bet. Like, that's insane. I definitely didn't see that coming.
Yeah, I
It was a rough
was
day for South Carolina.
very much expecting that game to be closer, but is what it is. I'm not gonna say it was
That happened.
bad. I was just commenting on. I think it's interesting that there was that many blowouts in the Final Four compared
Yeah.
to the
No,
other side.
I definitely agree.
All right,
It's weird to see. It's weird to see at any level. Like we talked about,
because
like the Super Bowl.
yeah,
Like blowouts at that stage are rare and boring.
yeah, and that was like you rarely see a true blowout in March,
Yeah,
especially in March
and
Madness and in any real sports tournament. I just think it's rare. So it is
yeah,
kind of
no,
interesting that all three of them were blowouts compared to the other
the
side, in
men's, which
which
were all really close,
yeah, in which
and both of the men, like two of the men's games, came down to like the final minute or so.
yeah. So just a small little interesting thing there, but
Yeah.
we'll move on
Well,
to hockey. The NHL is
yes,
starting their playoffs here in the weekend. I do believe they start Saturday. Might be wrong. It might start Friday, but I do think the first playoff games start Saturday. So if you're not a hockey
very
fan,
exciting. This is a
just
great time to become
tune
one.
in. Just tune in. You won't regret it. Playoff hockey is probably, in my opinion, the best playoff sport out there. It's
Oh,
electric. It's
absolutely.
so much fun. If you were someone that liked the Four Nations tournament and haven't really gotten to hockey, this is going to be very similar to that. It's going to be very chippy, very competitive. Hockey players take things seriously. Go ahead, do yourself a favor. Watch some playoff
There's
hockey.
for those of you, and I understand this mentality that it's like I kind of like the fighting. There's actually quite a bit of fighting in playoff hockey.
It happens more.
Like
Things
they see
matter
each
more.
other multiple games in a
You're
row.
guaranteed to see each
That
other four
tends to
times in
get
a row.
contentious.
You're guaranteed to
Like,
see each other four times in a row.
yeah,
Things get fun.
by games 4 and 5,
And if you're going,
it's pretty
yeah,
like if games that go 7
by
last a
game
long time.
by the game 7, there might be some brawls. So do yourself a
So yeah,
favor, watch some playoff hockey. You won't regret it. It is amazing. And if you want something to cheer for, pick a team. Doesn't really matter. Any team, just pick one, and you'll have
yeah,
fun watching that. I would recommend maybe picking. You can pick an underdog like the Canadians or the Senators. You can pick the favorites. Just watch some playoff hockey.
16.
If you want a good storyline, pick the Avalanche. And you might be saying that's a little biased. We are Avs fans. We have said this multiple
Yes,
times.
but there's some great news for Avs fans.
For Avs
Great,
fans,
great news.
for hockey fans in general, I even feel like for sports fans, because I do think this whole situation is beyond sports and
That's
can
fair.
cover any sport.
That's fair.
Because Gabriel Landeskog, the captain of the Colorado Avalanche, should, in theory, play his first NHL game in over 3 years this playoff season. He recently was with the AHL, which, for those of you that don't know, is the minor leagues or the like G League. If you want to compare it
Yeah.
to basketball, it's the G League of the NHL. It's where your younger guys, your draft picks, play to get better. He was there for a conditioning stint, played back-to-back, played 2 games back-to-back. In the first game, didn't really do much. Not surprising. Dude hasn't played in 3 years. In the second game, ended up getting a goal and an assist, which is wildly impressive.
Yeah.
So I do expect him to be back for the playoffs. I don't know if he's starting game 1. I don't know if it's going to wait until game 3 when the Avalanche are at home.
Um,
But either way,
I
Gabriel
think
Landeskog should make his return to the NHL.
I think it's game 3.
I wouldn't.
Unless they're worried about they want him to have a little ice time.
I think they might just throw. I think they're
But
going to give him. Because here's the thing. Maybe they wait till game 3. If they think he genuinely improves their chances of winning games 1 and 2, they'll put him out there.
that's fair.
If they don't feel like his impact is going to be enough to where they're substantially better off, they'll wait till game
They'll
3.
wait. Like they
But
will let his return be at home,
home in front of the fans.
home ice. That will be, I promise you, even if you don't want to watch hockey, if you tune into the Avs' first home game in the playoffs, you will see a crowd support and eruption like I doubt sports has ever seen.
So for reference, I do really thank the AHL for this. They actually had the first game he was returning in, televised on YouTube, so people could watch it. It was probably the most anticipated I've been for a hockey game in a while, considering
I
it's the regular
I got
season.
teary eyed. I got emotional.
He stepped on the ice, and I seriously sat there and went, "Fuck,
I was like, it's
it's
okay.
happening." They like announced it, the crowd erupts, and I
Yeah,
was like, "Holy shit, it's actually happening!"
because
For
we had pretty high bets
that he was gonna
that
be done.
he was gonna retire,
And then
and
for
that the Avs were gonna advocate for him to retire because he is a hell of a cap hit
yeah,
to not be playing.
so for those of you that don't know the situation, in the 2021 playoffs, he was cut by a skate blade in his quad. Also, if you really want to know, there is a series now on, I believe, TNT, so I think you can watch it through HBO if you have that. If not, there's other ways to find it. But there is a series, I cannot think of the name of it now, that is a full documentary of his recovery and what it was. And he does a much better job explaining what happened than I'm going
Yeah,
to. And I'd highly recommend going and checking out that documentary. It's great. Um, I don't know how many episodes are into it now, but it's fantastic. Highly recommend going and watching that. But I'll give the quick rundown. So he was cut by a skate blade in the 2021 playoffs that cut his quad. And they didn't think it was too bad, so he ended up playing the 2022 season into the 2022 playoffs, in which the Colorado Avalanche won the Stanley Cup.
yep.
So the last game he played, period, was the game they won the Stanley Cup, which was Game 5 that year in Tampa Bay. Or no, Game 6 that year in Tampa Bay.
6. It
Um,
did go to 6.
yeah, Game 6 in
Because I
Tampa
remember
Bay.
I did not want it to go to 7.
No. So Game 6 in Tampa Bay, they win. He lifts the cup, and that was the last game he played. Um, it came out later. Then he ended up having complete, I believe, cartilage replacement in his knee. Is what ended up having to be done. Which this surgery is very new, and no hockey players ever returned from it. And I believe not very many athletes, period, return from it. And at the time, he and Lonzo Ball, the basketball player for the Chicago Bulls, were kind of going through the same surgery. Lonzo did end up returning to the NBA this year, which was great. And then obviously now Landeskog has returned to hockey this year. In theory, he should play in the NHL. So, from that perspective, seeing people that weren't playing their sport for multiple years be able to make a return from a what many consider a career-ending injury, I think that opens up a whole new thing for sports in terms of if you end up needing this kind of repair, it could be possible.
Like the mental willpower it takes to get yourself back into that shape,
Yeah,
back into that mentality is phenomenal. I mean, Landeskog is a phenomenal hockey player. He's a phenomenal athlete. He's a phenomenal teammate. And Avs fans genuinely were heartbroken when we
yes.
thought that was the last game we were ever going to see him in. And for it to end that way was fantastic. But to think that was the end
Of the
was
captain,
devastating.
and
And it was
keep
devastating to the Avs.
yeah, because we say captain, and like obviously the NBA doesn't have captains, the NFL does, but you
Has
don't
so many. It's
put weight to
crazy.
them. The NHL, when you get the captaincy, that is a big deal. That's not just something that happens. There's only 32 captains, and each team's
Yeah.
very selective. I actually don't even think there's 32 because some teams don't have captains. Period.
And it's extremely telling that the Avs did not pick a new captain.
Yeah,
They were
and
like, it is Landeskog until
for
he is officially no longer an Av.
and for the reference, Gabriel Landeskog was the youngest captain ever when he was named
Mhm.
captain. He was only 19 years old. He's been with the Avalanche his whole career. He's pushing. He's over 30 now. So for him to make a return is just absolutely incredible. And seriously, I would just highly recommend going and watching. It's called A Clean Sheet. Is the new documentary. It's incredible. They're on 4 episodes currently. You can watch it on TNT, Hulu, and HBO.
Yeah.
Seriously, go watch it. It'll
And
probably
have
bring you to
tissues.
tears. Yeah,
Um,
it might hit you a
and I
little,
want to be clear, Brendan and I do not cry very easily. Um,
but this is definitely.
this hits you. If you are a hockey fan, definitely bring tissues.
But yeah,
If you're a sports fan, probably.
yeah, if you're a fan of sports, this is just an incredible story. Go check it out. It it is honestly kind of mind blowing that he might return to the NHL. Period.
Yeah.
So keep an eye on
And to
that.
do it, if you want to watch hockey at all, any part of the playoffs, that's the game to watch.
Yeah,
Is his return.
and I would say
And then
definitely Game 3 of the series. Even if he plays the first two, him
it
suiting up
won't be the same. It
on
won't be
home
the same.
ice, I do think will be just incredible. That series itself, the Colorado Avalanche are going up against the Dallas Stars, which
It's a
for the
tough matchup.
tough match, probably going to be the best matchup in the first round, bar
Yeah.
none. They're two great teams, both very deep. There are other storylines in this series other than just him returning. Mikko Rantanen, who was obviously a part of the
Talked
Colorado
about
Avalanche for the
Rantanen.
last 10 years, is now with the Stars. So he's returning to play the former team. It'll be an absolute incredible series. So if you just want to like not even focus on the playoffs as a whole, watch this series. It'll be incredible. Um, I'm really looking forward to it, even though I am a
Yeah.
Habs fan and I'm kind of terrified because the Stars are very good. I don't think
Stars
it'll
are
matter.
very good.
It doesn't matter.
Um,
I'm gonna watch this as a hockey fan because it's
yeah.
going to be incredible. That's like
And just really playoff hockey. Playoff hockey is just different. Um, we love football and we talk about football a lot and we like basketball and we talk about there's something special and energetic that happens in hockey playoffs that you don't see in other sports.
yeah, it'll be incredible. Go and check it out. For reference, these are the matchups for round one. On the West, we have Winnipeg, who's the President's Trophy winner. They had the most points of the regular season, so they are deemed the best team in the regular season, are facing off against the St. Louis Blues. Should be another good one. St. Louis has been really good recently, so that should be fun. You have Dallas versus Colorado, the series you just talked about. Then you have Vegas, who won their division, going against Minnesota, and then you have the Los Angeles Kings going up against the Edmonton Oilers on the West. On the East, you have the Toronto Maple Leafs going against the Ottawa Senators. You have the Tampa Bay Lightning going against the Florida Panthers. You have the Washington Capitals and Alexander Ovechkin, who we failed to mention somehow. Cannot believe I forgot to mention that. And
I
the
was gonna
Montreal
swing back
Canadiens.
around to it.
And then you have the Carolina Hurricanes and the New Jersey Devils. That is the matchups on the East. That is the Stanley Cup playoffs. Again, I do believe it starts Saturday. The first game will be 6 p.m. Eastern on Saturday, followed by the Avalanche and Stars. So first game is Winnipeg versus St. Louis, 6 p.m. Eastern Saturday, and then the next game is Dallas, Colorado, 8:30 p.m. Eastern on Saturday. So that's when the playoffs start. You guys can look up the full schedule if you're interested. But because we're idiots and forgot to talk about Alexander Ovechkin, we're going to do that now. Because he did probably the most insane thing in sports this year. And is now
It's interesting that we spent like so much time this year talking about records being broken and the potential of that, like with Saquon and
yeah.
Ashton Genty was trying to break a record and all of these things. And then one of the most monumental records was broken in a sport that like it's one of the least watched in the US.
Yeah.
But that day, the next day, every sports show talked about it.
Yep.
Every single
one. So for those of you that don't know, Alexander Ovechkin plays for the Washington Capitals. He just broke the all-time goal-scoring record in the NHL that was previously held by Wayne Gretzky, who was the greatest NHL player of all time. Many people didn't even think this would be possible. So yeah, Alexander Ovechkin breaks it with Gretzky in the building, which I think was even better. Obviously, I think they did talk about it. Gretzky was going to go to every game in which it was possible.
Gretzky started following him. I think he said 3 games prior.
Yeah.
Because he made and Alexander knew it, and everybody knew it, that you could hug him. But Gretzky, and I think that's a difference in sports as well. Gretzky wanted to be the first person to shake his hand.
Yeah.
He was really excited that someone was on the verge of doing this. Like, I can't even think of his name. But when Saquon was close to the rushing record, they were like, well, it's not the same. You know what? So many people get protective of their records, but Gretzky was so excited and was so happy for him. Yeah. But he'd started following him, I think he said 3 games prior, just in case.
Yes.
And then everybody knew you could hug him, but only Wayne could shake his hand.
So, and then for reference, this is a thing in the NHL apparently, because when Gretzky went to break the record, the person that held him before him did the exact same thing, was in attendance, and was the first person to shake his hand.
Yeah.
So it is very hockey's a very respectful sport in terms of that. That is something that Gretzky wanted to do. He did it. He's been very gracious, and it's honestly incredible. It was an incredible thing. I ended up watching that game, ended up seeing it happen.
Yeah.
It was not live, but I was watching it on TV when he did it, and it was one of the most interesting things that ever happened. The fact that the game just like stopped.
Nothing happened. It
Like they had the
time
celebration.
froze for a moment.
Like he scores. It takes a minute for them to realize that it was him that scored.
Like that it was that.
He does the celebration, and then the game just stops, and they do like they bring out Gretzky. They
Mm-hmm.
do like the big celebration, and then the game continues, which I thought was very weird.
Yeah.
But kind of cool.
I felt like watching it. At first, I was like, I don't know, maybe you should continue the game. And then I was like, I don't know if he had gotten another one. Like, I just respected how it was done.
Because I do think it actually was kind of important that they did just stop it right then and
Yeah,
there.
be like, everything, like, this is now bigger than this game.
Because the Capitals did end up going on to lose the game, and Ovechkin was the only person that scored for the Capitals. So that was something. But
Yeah.
at the same time,
And had you had to do that celebration like then after, there's kind of like a... Yeah, because I started watching Capitals hockey the game before.
I did too.
I was like, because normally I'm like, I watch Avs, and then if nothing else is on, hockey. But I knew it was like, it had the potential for coming. So the game before, I was like, it's on, I'm ready.
And then he almost does it in that game, which was incredible.
Yeah.
He needed 3
I was like,
goals.
holy shit, and then it's coming, it's gonna happen.
Because what's crazy is I thought is he has the record for the most empty net goals in NHL.
Yeah.
And when he had the 2 and they pulled the goalie, I was like, he's going to do it on an empty netter. He chose not to. He chose to wait.
Yeah. He was
which
like,
I
I'm not, this is
which
not how we're doing this.
I loved. I thought that was great from him in terms of an empty net goal is an empty net goal. They all count.
Yeah,
the same.
like, I'm not saying it like, it doesn't take no skill or anything like that, but it's, if you're gonna break Wayne Gretzky's scoring goal, you want a goalie there.
So, and I think it was interesting because this is the other thing is people were talking about it. They're like, would it be more impressive that he did it against the goalie, or that he did it in a game where he got a hat trick at home?
I mean,
But you did
that's
have to
fair.
score the last goal, empty netter. And I was like, honestly, I don't think it matters because
Yeah,
at the end of the day, it's his record and he can break it how he wants. And he decided to do it
he didn't want an empty netter.
in a real way. And I do feel really bad for the goalie he did it against.
Yeah.
Budweiser did a thing where they were giving out cans to every goalie that had played against Ovechkin but wasn't scored on. And at the time, the goalie he scored the record goal against, he had never scored on, and they were actually international teammates. And then he
So
gets
then,
his first
yeah,
goal against his national teammate happens to be the record-breaking goal. It was a little bit like, damn, that stings a bit.
that hurts a bit.
But at the
That
same
hurts
time,
a
if
bit.
I'm that goalie, I'm like, now
I'm
I'm knowing
happy
that,
for you.
yeah,
Like,
now I have this
now I
interesting
get to be that guy.
Yeah, I get to be he broke the record against me, guys. I let that puck in the net.
But yeah, it was phenomenal.
Yeah,
I
it
was really
was
happy for him. I think it's beautiful the way hockey does some of those things and the respect they give to that stuff.
it was possibly one of the most interesting things in sports this year in terms of like just the level of the record and what the NHL did for it. I think it was
Yeah.
incredible. It was
I mean,
amazing.
this has been a really great year for hockey. Like Four Nations was such
Yeah.
a success. And this record in this moment, if you are a hockey fan, whether you like the Avs or not, to see Landeskog's return is monumental. Like, I feel like this is a really big year for hockey.
And the trades that happen within hockey being
The trades
big,
were,
talked about.
yeah, like, I'm not saying that I think, like, tomorrow hockey's gonna blow up. But I think this has been a really big year.
But I will say, hockey probably hasn't had as many followers as it did prior to this year ever. And this year, I think if you look at who's never watched hockey, I think the number of people that watched hockey for the first time this year exponentially skyrocketed.
Yeah.
Compared to previous years. Just because of the intrigue with Four Nations, now with Ovi breaking the record, and with everything there, I think hockey is starting to kind of jump up on people's radar.
It's moving up. It's moving up in the world, or at least in the U.S. In some parts of the world, it's the most important thing. So they're getting there.
Yeah.
Just remember, y'all, we were fans before it was cool.
What she said.
We are, I think, however, going to move on from hockey.
Yeah.
And quickly just talk a little college football. With the draft coming up, there are some interesting things happening. I'm pretty confident no one in the world wants this kid drafted. Pretty sure that's what's fucking happening.
So we'll start with the good news.
Well,
I would say good for them news. The Colorado University, the Colorado Buffs, have retired Shedeur Sanders' jersey and Travis Hunter's jersey. So the number 2 and the number 12 are no longer available to CU players. So they did that. They did that like yesterday, I think.
a couple days ago.
A couple days ago.
Sometime.
That's cool. I do think that's a bit premature, but Travis Hunter was one of the best college players CU's ever going to have, and Shedeur Sanders is Deion Sanders' son. So, I mean, like, it is what it is.
Here's my thing. And this is going to tie into the next thing as well. I get doing it. Right. Travis Hunter, one of the best that organization has ever seen. Shedeur, you did. I think in some ways too much credit's been given, but also maybe not enough. You did revitalize this franchise, right? You took it from a 4-win team or like a 1-win team. Like, you revitalized this franchise. I'm not saying that it's not deserving. If that's what Colorado wants to do, by all means. But some of the criticism and the hesitation with Shedeur, this does not help.
Yeah.
This does not help him. Almost no college player has had their jersey retired like this quickly. Like, let the kid get drafted.
Again, I think it makes sense to do Travis's because he was the Heisman. He's probably Colorado's only had 2 Heismans in their history, and Travis Hunter was one of them. And he's probably going to be the best player that program sees ever. He could be, like, he's that good for who they are. So that to me does make sense.
But you're just not helping Shedeur.
Yeah.
You're not. Unfortunately, this came up. It's come up a lot, right? With the draft, everyone's like, man, Shedeur's getting so much hate and criticism, and it's only because, he's primetime son. And that's not true, right? All draft prospects get this, especially quarterbacks. Quarterbacks are highly scrutinized. You're just not helping him. Like, let him breathe. Let him get drafted. But when some of the complaints or criticisms are his arrogance or the cocky, he didn't do this, but it doesn't help.
No. And I do think he's a flawed prospect. I will say some of the criticism I think is going too far,
Yeah.
but that happens to like every prospect because unfortunately it just kind of is what it like.
There were terrible things said about Caleb Williams. There
Analysts
were like
have to be prepared for players to like. So they're sitting there going, "We're going to nitpick every possible thing we can because we."
well, and I I also put little stock in what anonymous executives have to say.
Yeah,
Like, bitch, put your name on it.
I'm like
Like,
like again, if an ant like I'm just gonna throw out because like some big ones like Lance Zierlein,
yeah.
Daniel Jeremiah, like the big draft analysts, when they do their like scouting report on a player, they will say their flaws and they'll give their reasoning and they'll say why they may or may not like the player. And to me, that's good
It's analytical,
because
it's intentional.
analytical, it's intentional, and they're putting their name behind it. Like Daniel
Yeah,
Jeremiah will come out and be like, "I'm just gonna use him because he's probably
this
the
is what I
biggest."
think.
He's like, let's just say I don't like Shedeur Sanders for these reasons. That
Yeah,
tends to not work in the NFL. This, and this. The arrogance could be a problem. This, and this. But he
yeah.
puts his name behind it.
An anonymous NFL executive, which could mean 101 things, by the way, coming out and saying some inappropriate shit. Like, shut up. You didn't put your name on it for a reason. So, the criticism in that regard goes too far. I don't think it's a Shador thing. I think it's a draft thing. There have been terrible things said about really great people and really nice people. Um, and really good players. Okay. But I just don't think some of the things that are being done and said with our name on it have helped his chances.
Yeah.
I don't want to say chances. His draft stock. Which takes us to point number 2. Shermer, a former NFL head coach,
And I want to say
was
I believe he was the coordinator in
he was the
Colorado.
offensive coordinator in Colorado.
Yep.
Compared, Shador said his NFL comp was Daniel Jones. And just so we're clear, he did work with Daniel Jones his rookie year. That was his quarterback at the time. That's a terrible thing to say about somebody. That's a
Yeah.
terrible thing to say about a quarterback. Like,
And I just think it's also
okay,
wrong.
it's wrong. One, they don't have a similar play style. They have very different personalities. I don't think it's accurate at all. But like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
Do you not like? Okay, Daniel Jones's rookie year wasn't terrible. He's been a starter for 7 years, and he got paid a decent amount of money. Sure, but if that's what you're hoping to get out of the NFL, nobody will draft you. They just saw the Giants implode. The Giants are supposed to meet with Shador and have the 3rd overall pick, and someone just compared him to their last quarterback.
Yeah.
Who are you helping with that statement? You could have said the comp is Joe Burrow, right? Super accurate, a little mobile, can like move in the pocket, maybe get you a couple yards, and like even if that's not true, even
You're
if like
he's
you're like that's
helping
maybe
him.
reaching a little bit, you're helping him.
I would even say the most accurate comp to what Shador Sanders is Geno Smith. And honestly,
That's a good comp.
because here's the thing, and I do think his career could follow a Geno Smith arc. I do think coming into the league, Geno Smith was immature, and I think you can say the same about Shador. I do think his cockiness and his attitude comes from an immaturity standpoint, not a other standpoint.
Talent.
Yeah. And I think that was the struggle with Geno Smith. So I do think the comp coming out of college, it makes sense. And if
And I
Shador
think,
can mature in the NFL, Geno
yeah,
Smith's a good quarterback now.
Baker Mayfield needed to mature a bit. I think the other thing that I like about the Geno comp, there are quarterbacks. I say 3. Okay. I think there are 3. Some people in the world will tell you there are 4. That's a debate we'll have when we do quarterback rankings in a few weeks. I think there are 3 quarterbacks in the NFL that can transform a team with their talent. 3. I think coach and place matter, all of those things, but there are 3 that with pure talent can transform a team. Everybody else, some of those things are more important. And I think for Geno and for Shador, fit really matter. Who your coach is, what your O-line looks like, your weapons. Now, to Shador's credit, had one of the worst O-lines, but one of the best completion percentages.
But also took the most sacks. And a lot
Yeah.
of that was on him.
Like, that's a Caleb kind of thing.
Yeah.
So, I think fit for Shador, I don't think he has an otherworldly talent that no matter where he goes, he will transform that team. I do not think comparing him to Daniel Jones is accurate or helpful to anything. But to say that publicly with the draft a week away, him about to meet with that team, I would be offended and pissed off.
I just think it's so wildly inaccurate. And I do.
Yeah. Go ahead.
I would be fine if you were trying, because here's I can't help but think you're not trying to help him in this scenario, and that's technically fine. I do think it's fine to have criticisms of a player.
Yeah.
But at least be accurate in your assessment. Seriously, if you had just said he's like Geno Smith coming into the league, that is perfectly fine because it's what I believe is a good comp for him because he's accurate. He's not too mobile, but can do stuff on the ground, and he has a maturity problem in college. Everything that Geno Smith had.
Yeah.
And you would be giving the positives and the negatives in one sentence with who you believe he is compared to. That is fine. Because you are sitting there going, maybe he's not the best prospect. Sure. But comparing him to Daniel Jones, who is not even kind of his play style, is not someone I would ever really compare Shador Sanders to in terms of how they play, the head they have on their shoulders, who they are as people. It just doesn't make sense.
And to, at this point, a bust. Like, that's what Daniel Jones is. He was the first overall pick. At this point, by definition, he's a bust.
Yeah.
And that's what you've compared him to. So I just feel like there are not enough people actually trying to get Shador drafted.
Yeah. Again, it's fine
They think
to have
they're
criticisms.
helping, but they're not.
It's fine to have criticisms. I just do think you need to be give the positives and the negatives.
I also think there's a difference in what you say privately and what you say publicly. If the Giants call you and go, hey, who would you comp him to? Geno Smith, probably, for the reasons you've listed. You're asked publicly, who would you compare him to? Joe Burrow. Accurate, not super mobile, but will do enough. Talented. Moving on. Next question. You know what I mean? Like, it's different. It's different.
Yeah.
If you genuinely thought, if you're like, man, I worked with him and Daniel Jones, and it's like, that's my comp. You could say that privately. You don't have to say that for people to then talk about.
Yeah.
The people that want him will call you. You can talk to them privately and say shit like that. To publicly state it is insane.
It's definitely
It's a choice.
It's a situation.
It's a choice.
We'll see how how teams view this. Who knows? This might not really affect teams' perception of the talent. We'll kind of have to wait
That's
and
fair.
see till the draft. Because who knows? Maybe the Giants still just take him. Maybe the Browns do. Maybe somebody takes him early.
I don't know. The whole draft situation's gotten muddy. I know what I wanted to happen and what I think was best for the league, and that seems to have been fucked. So,
yeah,
just wildly.
We will wait and see, and who knows? Maybe they actually do something.
Yeah. All right. Well, now we will move on to the NFL, as they have the draft coming up. Not a whole ton going on, but I know we both. I don't think we can do a pod and not talk about them a little bit.
Yeah.
I will kick us off with some Ravens. Really nothing. They had their pre-draft press conference. And if you've ever watched a Ravens pre-draft press conference, it's pretty much the most useless 45 minutes of your life. It's honestly, Eric DaCosta, it's like talking to a wall for this. Now I will give credit. Multiple analysts ranked their top, front offices, and the Ravens were 1 through 3 for everybody's list. They do a great job drafting. They do a great job in free agency. All those things. But he's very uninformative when talking pre-draft. He honestly sounds annoyed to be there. Like, how dare you ask me what I'm going to draft? I don't know, bro. We'll see what happens.
We got 20 picks before we have to worry about that.
Yeah,
and a lot can change in 20 picks.
So, he did say they will probably take a corner. They will probably take a safety. They may take a kicker. They may do a lot of things. The two, I think, kind of main talking points that came up, or the main questions that people have, are Voorhees. I think the intention is to give Voorhees another year. And Mark Andrews came up. He said but didn't say. He's like, well, Mark Andrews is really talented, and he works really hard. And we're pretty much in the business of having people that are talented and work hard on our roster. That's pretty much the definition of our culture. But he's not going to commit to anything. It was then kind of funny because he was like, I don't think I've ever drafted a player on draft day. And 3 people in the room went Hollywood Brown. And he went, actually, that was done the Monday beforehand. I just didn't want anybody to know, because then they would think I was going to take a wide receiver. And I'm a sneaky fucker. So I sincerely doubt that Mark Andrews will be traded between now and the draft. That's just kind of my opinion. Still will throw shit. Other things that came up were several fifth-year options are still out there on the table. Linderbaum, Hamilton, Derrick Henry's contract. I think two things. One, I think they're very draft centered right now. Where they pick impacts their cap. How many players impacts their cap. I think there's a level of that. I also do think they're still trying to get Lamar's deal restructured and then seeing how the money plays out to potentially do everybody else and what that looks like. It's just my opinion. It's my speculation. No idea. And you can't ask DaCosta because he will not tell you.
Pretty much.
He will give you the most runaround answer that in short means I don't know. And it's good. He doesn't ever go into the draft with like hard set plans and notions. He lets what comes come. But it's infuriating as a fan. I think pick number 1, if they draft in the first round, will either be the best available edge rusher or corner. If they do not pick in the first round, I don't know. But I would be shocked if they went offense in round 1. I'm going to be honest with you. I don't expect them to pick in round 1.
Which
But
I think is
if
very
they
weird,
do,
considering how many picks they already have.
I know. I'm aware of that. But if they do, I expect edge rusher or corner, depending on who's on the table or who's on the board.
Probably edge.
So that is kind of that's what I see. Based off their patterns, how they do things, and needs. I think with their first pick, it'll be an edge rusher. Which I don't hate. I don't hate it.
It'll
It
be a
will depend on the
receiver.
player. I'll die. That's what will
I was like, I didn't mean to try to kill you.
My body physically rejected that.
Yeah,
Don't fucking do it.
I see that.
Don't do it. I'll be
I'm
so
sorry.
mad. I'll be so mad.
I didn't realize it was gonna.
I'll be so mad.
Well,
Like,
we'll see when we get there.
like, what is with you people?
We'll see when we get there.
Why do we need this many wide receivers? Who's gonna throw them the ball?
You're saying
Lamar has
throw?
like 3. No, but he has like 3 people he likes.
Okay.
Everybody else is just out there.
That's fair. No,
like for what?
I was really kidding, because I don't think they will. I think you're right. I think they'll go edge rusher just because I think that's where the best player will be at the time. Because I don't think they'll be in with a chance at the top corners because I think they'll all go off the board too quickly. And then I think edge will just be a better position at the time.
I think corner is probably a day 3.
I was going to say, corner's weird in this draft. We can talk about this more next week.
Because we are, just a heads up, my goal is to do next week's pod before the draft.
Yeah. We want to get
so that way the following week we can really just focus on the draft picks that happened, see if we do anything special for draft day. We'll see.
We can try. I do know the episode before the draft, we'll probably try to do a mock draft if we can get that. Just do a 1 round, no trades.
Yeah.
what we think will happen, and then we'll do maybe an actual draft day thing if we can get that set up, and if we have
Yeah.
the capability to do that.
We
And then,
want to. This year just got a little complicated with the moving and the shit.
yeah. So we'll see if we do, it'll just be the first round.
Yeah.
We'll see if we can get that set up. But other than that, we should be good. We should have 2 things maybe on draft and then one after.
Yeah.
So yeah, we will have an episode before the draft happens.
Yes. All right, Brendan, you want to tell us
So
some
the
Seahawks news?
Seahawks have slightly more news than the Ravens because
Yeah, they're
they
helpful.
did a thing, and I don't really know why, but I'll talk about it. They re-signed Drew Lock to a 2-year, up to $5 million contract. I think the actual money is like $1.25 million. So he's not getting paid shit, and it's Drew Lock. I'm happy.
Yeah.
You texted me. I ended up seeing it. Was a little busy. You ended up texting me, and I responded indifferently because I was indifferent at the time. Because I saw it and went, this just doesn't make a ton of sense. We already have a backup on the roster. Signing Drew Lock to $5 million, just 2-year $5 million, just doesn't really make sense to me. Then I actually thought about it, and I love this move. I think this is great for a couple reasons. One, he's only getting like guaranteed. I think it's $1 million. It might be a little more, but either way, he's getting very little money. Number 2, I think Drew Lock is the perfect backup quarterback. He is a great locker room guy. He never is never in any trouble, never complains, and is always just happy to be there. He's
He's
always gonna
so
be
excited.
he's always gonna be hyping up his guy. He's always gonna be out there trying his best. And he might not ever play, but if he does have to play, you know he will give you everything he has, and he might even win a game.
Yeah.
He did it with the Seahawks a couple years ago when Geno Smith went down. So that's part 2. Part 3, and this is something I didn't know, him and Sam Darnold are actually friends. They prior to their draft, I even think in high school, they had met and had done like all American things together. Were roommates for some quarterback thing. I think it was like the All American, like All Star thing for their county in high school. I'm not 100% sure, but they've known
Okay.
each other for a while, and they've been kind of friends for a while. So I do think that's another thing of you're bringing in a guy that already knows who your starter is, knows the front office, knows everything. And Drew Lock is just, in my opinion, a fantastic person to have in your locker room, regardless of what's happening. So yeah, I love this. I think bringing Drew Lock back is fantastic. We both love Drew Lock. We think he's
Yeah.
awesome. He might not be the best quarterback out there, but what he does off the field and what he does in your room, I think is good enough to keep him around as a backup, regardless. So
He
that's
brings such a positive energy
yeah,
um that locker rooms just fall in love with, and a lot of starting quarterbacks fall in love with. I think the one exception was Bridgewater when they were both on the Broncos. In my opinion, this is more about Bridgewater than Drew, but that's a different conversation for a different day. And he loves Seattle.
yeah,
The only reason he went to New York was he thought he was going to get a chance to start. They pretty well fucked him out of that.
and they paid him $6 million.
Um, so for him to go back to Seattle, that energy, that hype that he brings to a starting quarterback, I think it's good not only for him, for the Seahawks, and for Darnold.
Yeah, I think this is great. I will say this is kind of interesting because now the Seahawks have 4 quarterbacks under contract. That's very rare for Seattle. They rarely even have 3 legitimate quarterbacks under contract. This year they have 4. You have Sam Darnold, Drew Lock, who just signed, Sam Howell, and Jaron Hall. I would expect Sam Howell at this point to either get traded or released. I don't really see him sticking around.
Yeah.
I understood the thought process last year of paying a 4th-round pick, because that's pretty much what they gave up, for a younger quarterback that has started games, has room to develop, bringing him in, sitting him behind Geno, and seeing if you had something there. It made complete sense to me. In my opinion, the quarterback position is the hardest to get right, so you might as well take as many chances at it as you can to maybe find a future
Yeah.
one. So I have no problem with that, and I still have no problem with that, even if he ends up not getting traded and just getting released. I don't think it matters. I think it was worth the chance. He was cheap as a backup. It is what it is.
Yeah.
So I do think he'll end up not being on the roster, and at that point, the Seahawks will have Sam Darnold, Drew Lock, and then Jaron Hall on the practice squad. And I will say Jaron Hall is kind of an interesting one, considering that they did elevate him like 4 times last year off the practice squad because they liked him and they wanted him in that room. And part of the contract was they would elevate him a certain number of times. So I do think it would be a little weird if they got rid of Jaron Hall at this point. So I think the
Yeah.
Seahawks are going to enter the season with at least 3 under contract. And then who knows if they draft one this year. Schneider always talks
And
about how you should draft a quarterback every year. He hasn't. He's drafted 2 quarterbacks in his whole time in Seattle in like 14 years. One of them was
and I
Russell Wilson.
know,
So
yeah. And I know that that's kind of an odd number for Seattle. That is a
yes,
pretty standard number in Baltimore.
they do tend to keep one on the practice squad, but it's not
Oh shit,
normal.
I did have. No, we already talked about it. Never mind.
They do normally keep one on the practice squad. It's just not normally a guy that you like care about. A lot of times it's just a
Yeah,
random name that they do that just to have one.
just there.
Jaron Hall is someone that they actually like and someone that they think could be something, which is why when they signed him, they made it clear that they would elevate him for a certain number of games so that he would be paid differently.
Yeah,
Um, so I think that's the very interesting thing here. So yeah, Seattle has 3 currently, could draft one, or has 4 currently, could get rid of one, could draft one. Who knows what they go into camp with? I'm very intrigued to see it because right now, I think as it stands, you have Sam Darnold as your starter, Drew Lock as your backup, and then you have the other 2 firmly below that.
yeah,
So I'm very intrigued on what their plan is. That's something that I think will happen after the draft, or Sam Howell could be traded during the draft. A team could get desperate, miss out on a couple quarterbacks, need a backup for the year. That could happen.
yeah,
We'll kind of see there. But yeah. So Drew Lock joining the Seahawks should be a fine move. Shouldn't have to play in theory, but if he does, I have faith that he can get you out of a couple games if needed. And
yep,
then the only other thing with Seattle is the 30 visits. A lot of times it's called the top 30. I don't believe in that because it's not the top 30. You just use 30 of them for however you would like. They did not use all 30. I believe they only used like 21 of them this year that are been confirmed. They might have used all 30. Seattle does tend to be very secretive with these. They don't like to advertise who they're bringing in on 30 visits. So they have like 21. They have 2 quarterbacks, couple wide receivers, a lot of offensive linemen. No surprise there. Couple tight ends, couple edge, uh, a bunch of corners, and a safety. I don't feel like naming all the names.
yeah. No, that's
Uh,
fair.
the
I
big
don't
one,
want you to.
the big ones though are Jalen Milroe, the quarterback out of Alabama, Nick Emenwari, the safety out of South Carolina, Jahad Campbell, the linebacker out of Alabama, Shamar Stewart, the edge out of Texas A&M, and Will Johnson, the corner out of Michigan, are like the big names. People that you
Yeah,
kind of expect to either go first round or second. You can also add Siobhan Revell to that list, another corner out of East Carolina. Um, So yeah, that's who they visited, guaranteed visited with. There are more names. I'm not going to list them. But they went for definitely a wide range of positions. They were kind of everywhere. Not surprising. I don't even know if the person they're going to draft in the first round is on that list. I guess we'll wait and see. But some years they don't follow who they bring in on 30 visits. A lot of times Seattle used to use 30 visits on guys that would be at the back end of the draft or in UFAs to get them in the building and try to meet them and try to get them to sign in free agency as a UDFA. That tended to be what they used
Yeah.
him for. This year, it does seem like they were definitely going for more of the top end talent, which I think is fine. But yeah, so that's their 30 visits. Like Dallas, if I had to guess, I think in the first round, the Seahawks will go one of two ways. I think they either draft the best guard available, or they'll draft the best defensive lineman available, whether that's a tackle or an edge. I think they'll draft the best along both best along either side of the line, whether it's the best offensive lineman or best defensive lineman. I think that is where they'll first pick will
Yeah.
be. Could be wrong, but I do think that's where they're leaning currently.
That's fair.
But yeah, that is
Nice.
pretty much it. The Seahawks have been, like every other team, just wait until the end of the draft. So,
All right. Well, then we will move on. We are still talking NFC East.
yep.
We doubled up in our last video. We are
And
going to double up again this video.
yep.
Um, and talk both the Dallas Cowboys and the New York Giants. I scoff. I want to clarify something. Not because it's like the Cowboys and I have this unrelenting hate for them. That's not the case. I don't really give a shit. But it's like, I'm so over them. Like, I don't want to talk about them. So we're going to do this, but
We're going to try and make it quick.
yeah.
We're going to try
All
make
right.
this quick.
So,
Cowboys. They came
go
third in the
with
division.
all your stats.
Cowboys came third in the division. Did not have a great season. Dak Prescott also got hurt, so take that with what you will. Their team cap space right now, 37 million. So they're chilling, having enough to sign their draft picks. Could even bring in another free agent if they would like. Key additions to the team. We got Joe Milton, backup quarterback. They traded for from the Patriots, so they bring him in to maybe be their future quarterback. Don't think that's a bad move, considering that Dak Prescott really struggles to be healthy, and he is pushing 30. Some other
Yeah.
names they brought in defensive tackle Oza Odighizuwa. I cannot say that last name. I do apologize. Pretty expensive defensive tackle. They also bring in Solomon Thomas. They bring back Cavante Turpin. They bring in Javonte William, the former Denver Broncos running back. They bring in Miles Sanders, another running back. And that is pretty much the main. And they also bring in Kyrie Elam, the Bills corner. Jack Sanborn, who I think actually does fit this team pretty well at the linebacker position. And then they also bring back Brian Anger, their punter. It's bad when I have to name a punter as a key addition, guys.
Yeah.
Yeah. But that's what they brought back. Who they're losing? They are losing Dexter Lawrence. He signed with Seattle. They're losing Brandon Cooks. He's gone. Michael Gallup gone. That's pretty much it. And I think the biggest one is Zach Martin is retiring, so he will not be with the team. That is a huge hit. He is one of the best offensive linemen ever.
Yeah.
A legend in Dallas, and is definitely going to be missed. Again, incredible player. Will definitely be missed on that team. So that's really it for their departures and arrivals. Didn't have the best offseason in the world.
They never do.
They never do. So, the draft picks they have, I have them all listed here. They have the 12th pick in every round. So they have the 12th pick in the first, 12th pick in the second, third. They don't have a fourth. They have 2 fifths, 2 sixths, and 3 sevenths. So
there you go.
They have their native picks in the first 5 rounds. So you're fine. Other than the fourth. So
they gave up the fourth for their new backup quarterback, whose name
Joe Milton, which I think is a perfectly fine.
Yeah, he was the third backup for the Patriots. Everyone loved him the one game he played against the Bills. Backups. So that tells you everything.
He was a draft pick.
Also, remember they spent a 4th round draft pick on Trey Lance.
Yeah, he was drafted last year. I think it's fine if you think that he could actually be something in the NFL. I think he might. He has a really strong arm. You just have to be able to dial him in a little bit. We'll see if they do that. But again, they went 7-10 in their division. Or 7-10 was the record. Dak was hurt. You got some decent picks. Use them right.
They weren't playing well before he got hurt, so let's remember that.
Still think it's important to mention that.
No, it's fair. It's fair. I just friendly reminder.
Yeah.
It's not just because Dak got hurt.
No.
But they weren't 7-0 and then Dak got hurt.
But yeah. So they got...
And they have a new head coach.
Decent picks. A new head coach in Brian Schottenheimer, who was their offensive coordinator last year. So, that's...
really reached.
Really good choice there. It's the Cowboys. It's the Cowboys.
Just great choices all around.
Until Jerry sells the team or departs the team, probably not going to get much better. So,
on that note, let's go to team rankings because that's this thing that I've committed to doing. They ranked 10th out of 32. Their highest grade was an A. Their highest ranked was 4th in treatment of families. Players rate post-game family area a 9.05 out of 10, ranking them 2nd, 2 out of 32. And players feel that the team frequently organizes family events, which ranks 1 out of 32. What I will say is that's great. Maybe try winning football games, but what the fuck ever. Their lowest grade was a C. In training room, they came in at 27th, and training staff, they came in at 30th. 75% of players feel they have enough full-time trainers, ranking them 30th out of 32nd. 60% of players feel they have enough full-time physician therapists, a rank of 32 out of 32. 95% of players feel they have enough hot tub space, a rank of 9 out of 32. Well, that's how they got the C. And 88% of players feel they have enough cold tub space, a rank of 13 out of 32. Players report that the training room is understaffed, particularly an insufficient number of physical therapists. They also feel the training room lacks certain modalities found in most other NFL training rooms. What that probably refers to is the fact that randomly you have fucking tourists coming through taking pictures. So, and then training staff, 72% of Cowboys players report they receive enough one-on-one time. With training treatment, ranking them 29th out of 32, and players feel that their training staff slightly contributes to their overall success. That's a pretty important group, I would think. Ranking them 31 out of 32. So, $10 billion franchise, don't have enough training people. So let's just remember where our fucking priorities lie.
Yeah.
The one I found interesting, head coach, they ranked an A, 14th out of 32. 97% of Cowboys players feel their head coach, Mike McCarthy, was efficient with their time, a rank of 12. Players feel that McCarthy was highly receptive to locker room feedback and the team's needs, ranking him 11th. Ownership got a B. 18th, very middle of the pack. I'm not going to read all of this. The one that does stand out, players feel that ownership is committed to building a competitive team, a rank of 25 out of 32.
Well, of course they're going to say that when their jobs are also in the owner's hand
I
as the
mean,
GM.
that's a pretty low rank. Like,
But
you
also,
think
like,
there are 7 owners worse or less committed? And
but
by the way, those 7 don't also play GM.
yeah. But my point being, like, didn't he
So,
get a B for
yeah,
ownership?
but like,
For that one, yeah. But like
that's
ranking
pretty
your
shit.
owner that's also your GM is probably not
Yeah.
the greatest thing on the planet.
So yeah, it's just
They're a
it's
shit show.
interesting.
They're a shit
The
show.
year before they were 12th overall, so by technicality they did get better.
Nice.
The year before their training staff was a D plus, which ranked them 30th, and training room was a C minus. Head coach was a 9th though the year before, and ownership was still a B, and at 19th, so he actually moved up a spot.
Wow.
Um,
Congrats to Jerry.
that's pretty crazy there. But look, that will always be my criticism of the Cowboys.
Yep.
I do not feel any more strongly about the Cowboys than I do any other team. I don't really give a crap about. But they're the richest franchise in sports, and I do mean all sports, and an owner that I'm not confident knows what he's doing. So,
Yeah.
and then as for hopes this season, they're not high.
No.
I would not be shocked if they came in 3rd or 4th in their division.
I think they're gonna be bad, so we'll see. It's only whether
I think it's
the
going to depend on what the Giants do.
like I think the only reason the Cowboys might not be last in their division is because the Giants could be very, very bad.
Yeah,
Could be
and I think that's what it's going to come down to.
very bad.
It's who is worse, the Giants or the Cowboys.
And I guess we can talk about the Giants because they could be
Yeah,
very bad. So the Giants coming at to this point in the offseason only have $1.1 million of available cap space.
Jesus,
So
who are you paying?
so they've got to do some work to make it so that they can pay their draft picks.
Draft picks.
Because they're gonna need a little more money for that.
Yeah,
Obviously Daniel Jones' dead money is hitting them this year, so that's part of that. It's also you're paying Brian Burns 22 million. You're paying Dexter Lawrence 15. You're paying Andrew Thomas 16, and that's pretty much it. That is where like 90% of their cap lies. So you know, we'll see. They do have to make some cuts. See what that is, because yeah, they don't have the space to pay their free or their draft
they're
picks.
draft picks.
So
Yeah, the 3rd overall pick will eat up that cap space. That's all there is to it.
yeah, for reference, Malik Neighbors' base salary, he was the 6th overall pick last year, is $960,000. That was 3 picks after what they have now. So
Yeah, and if they pick a quarterback, by the way, it
checks
goes
out.
up.
Yeah, checks out. So let's talk about their acquisitions. They bring in Little Jordan Humphrey, former Broncos wide receiver. Yeah, that's how bad this is. That's how bad. They bring in Stone Forsythe, who I can tell you is a shitty offensive lineman. He was with the Seahawks. Chauncey Goldston, not a bad player.
Not bad.
There you go.
That's decent. That's the best so far.
Javon Holland, decent safety.
Oh,
He's pretty
okay,
good.
that's the best so far.
Darius Slayton, not a bad wide receiver. Roy Robertson Harris, not a bad defensive tackle. He was, again, formerly of the Seahawks. And then Paulson Adebo, not a bad corner.
Yeah.
So overall, not the worst.
Could have been better.
Could have been better. Not the worst. You still have no cap space, but that's a problem for later.
Yeah.
Definitely a problem for much later. Not you don't have to sign those for another couple weeks.
Yeah, you got
time.
some time.
Departures. I honestly can't find any. I do know they lost. I seriously can't find any. Also, other signings they made. They signed Russell.
I was like, I think you forgot two pretty big ones.
Yeah. They signed Russell Wilson, and they also signed
Jameis
Winston. Good luck. That is an interesting quarterback room, to say the least.
It's the weirdest quarterback room. I'll give it that.
I can't tell if it'll be the most fun quarterback room or the cringiest quarterback room.
I think it's the cringiest. I love Jameis. We've talked about this, right? Like everybody kind of loves Jameis. But they are both
too
like
much.
Jameis's hit a little funnier. But some of the shit that they say,
I think Jameis's is a little funnier because of his delivery. Because I think he's not trying to be too serious.
But like
Russ is trying to be too serious.
It's got to be the cringiest.
Yeah. So good luck with that.
I know they can't. I know they won't. But I really would love an in-season just for that room.
Is it bad that I'm also sitting here going, they got better at quarterback?
No, because they did. Even if you went with Jameis, it got better.
At least it would be interesting to watch,
Please, God, deliver him from these interceptions.
God, it's so great. Yeah, I have no idea who left that team. I cannot find anything about.
I have no idea.
Probably no one important because they lost all their good players the year prior. If we're being honest.
Yeah,
that's
they didn't have a ton.
Like Saquon left.
That's pretty much the
Daniel Jones. They traded him during the season, so that doesn't even count. So just don't even. This team is so bad. Draft picks, they do at least have quite a few of those. They have the 3rd overall pick, so that's very good. Maybe they can do something with that. They have a good 2nd, a good 3rd. They have 2 3rds. They have a 4th. They have a 5th, and they have 2 7ths. So you get your 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 2 3rds, a 4th, 5th, 2 7ths. So plenty of draft picks.
Yeah,
should be fine there.
I knew what I would have done. It's gotten a little complicated. I think the Browns are fucking it up.
Yeah. I think the Browns are seriously gonna fuck it up.
I think the Browns should draft Abdul Carter. I think they're going to draft Hunter.
I think Hunter's a better player. So in reality, they really should draft Hunter.
Here's my thing. I don't necessarily disagree with that. I think it could go either way. Whatever. With what Hunter does for your team versus what a second elite pass rusher could do for your team in a division with Joe Burrow and Lamar Jackson, and you have Kenny Pickett and Joe Flacco at quarterback, I would think that your goal would simply be we cannot let them score.
Yeah. You know what's also depressing, though, by the way? Only team in the division with the quarterback that's won the Super Bowl. And they have 2 of them.
That's crazy.
Because Lamar hasn't.
Yep.
Burrow hasn't. And Mason Rudolph definitely hasn't.
No.
So, yeah, Browns only team that have a Super Bowl winning quarterback on their roster, and they actually have 2 of them.
Yeah, that's pretty crazy.
Pretty dumb.
That's an unfortunate reality. So thanks for that. Not because I think the Browns will be good, but simply because, yeah, that's just unfortunate. The Ravens actually called about Flacco. They did.
Interesting.
Not the point. Anyway, off track. So I think the Giants should draft Hunter and then find a way to also draft Shador. That's what I would do.
Yeah, I knew what you were going for.
But I
Hunter's
think the
not going to
Browns.
be there. Hunter's not going to be there.
I don't know that I would just draft Shador. You know, I would maybe go Abdul Carter. You then probably have one of the best defensive lines.
You might
In
as
the
well
NFL.
try to build a good defensive line because you can't do
Yeah,
much else.
But with Dexter Lawrence, Abdul
Brian
Carter,
Burns.
Yeah, that's a
You
pretty
might have something there.
That's a pretty phenomenal line, so fuck it.
And I guess you can live with Russell Wilson for a year.
Yeah.
It is what it is.
Maybe keep your job to get into the Arch Manning race.
They're not going to be good enough to do that. Let's be clear.
We'll see.
They gone.
I think you should keep Dable, but I get it. So we'll see. Giants rankings. They were 20th out of 32. I think it's actually a little high given everything, but that's just me. Their lowest rank was a C plus. They came in. Actually, I guess it was a 20 C minus, but they ranked higher. Was 31st in nutritionist and dietitian. 67% of players report that they get an individualized nutrition plan, ranking the Giants 30th. Players feel their team dietitian is moderately accessible, a ranking of 30 out of 32. How much money y'all make? Hire somebody. Their highest rank was strength coaches at 15th and A minus. 96% of players report that they get an individualized training plan from their strength coaching staff, ranking them 12th. Players feel the strength coaches moderately contribute to their overall success, a rank of 18th. I don't know what success we're referring to, so that's a choice. Head coach got a B plus, 21st out of 32. 90% of players feel their head coach, Brian Daboll, is efficient with their time, a rank of 22nd out of 32. Players feel Daboll is moderately receptive to locker room feedback and the team's needs, ranking him 22nd out of 32. Ownership was a C plus. Nothing really exciting or interesting there. Previously, they were 8th the year before. Their head coach was an A minus. Their lowest rank was nutritionist and dietitian at a C plus, coming in at 27th. And their highest rank was team travel at 3rd. So I kind of said the same thing about the Ravens. That I think when you have back-to-back disappointing seasons, and while disappointing for the Ravens and disappointing for the Giants are two fundamentally different things, you see team ranks dip. Like the Ravens are disappointed that they didn't win a Super Bowl. The Giants chose to have the 3rd pick instead of the 2nd. So, it's different. I don't have any expectations for this team.
Oh God, no.
I
think
will
they'll
be
win more than 3 games, which is what
I
they will.
think that. I think inherently they got better at quarterback. I think if Russell Wilson is your starter, Malik Neighbors is a good deep ball wide receiver. If you improve the D line,
Yeah.
maybe 8 wins.
Yeah. Maybe.
I think you're fighting the Cowboys for third in your division.
I still think the Cowboys overall have the better roster. So if I had to pick now, I think I would take the Cowboys because
That's
I do
fair.
believe they have the better roster.
That's fair. And somehow the Cowboys are in less cap trouble with a $60 million quarterback.
Yeah, and
That's pretty weird.
I
Like, how dysfunctional is this fucking front office? Like, my God.
I was trying to look at their cap situation and figure out how, and I can't. I genuinely just can't figure out what they did to fuck it up.
Like, where their money's going.
Other than you're paying Daniel Jones still. That's the only answer I have, but you're only paying him like $22 million in dead cap right now. It's not that much. Like, comparatively speaking,
That's not a lot.
that's not enough for me to genuinely. I guess technically, though, if you think about it, the Cowboys have 34 million left. If you add that 22 million, it would be 23. So you wouldn't be in like the worst scenario ever. So I guess if you think about it that way, yeah, his dead cap technically kind of is the issue, but you knew about that coming into
When
this
you cut
free
it.
agency. Yeah, in this free agency.
Like, how have you not been reworking deals out the ass?
I don't know. I haven't
How are
figured
you
that
going
out
to
yet.
sign your draft picks? I don't.
They do technically have time. You don't have to
Yeah,
sign
I
draft picks
just.
for another couple of weeks, couple months.
How creative you got to get.
Because they need at least, I think they need like 10 mil. I think 10 mil is what you need to go into the season and feel comfortable. Because I think it's only like 6 mil to sign all your free agents normally, or sign all your rookies.
All your picks. That's just crazy.
Is what they like.
Crazy.
I might be a little off on my numbers, but I do think that's rough.
Well, I do think, like, obviously, like, where you draft, how many plays a factor. But I would say 6 to 10.
And you can probably pay all your rookies and be fine.
Like, that's
and then
crazy.
whether you want to be able to sign free agent, like it's whether you want to be able to make trades in season or pick people up in season, like that's where the extra cap space comes into play. But I don't know. It's definitely an interesting situation. The Giants are very bad. So yeah, I do think you're right. I think the Cowboys and the Giants are going to fight for last in their division, and it's just going to be. It's going to come down to which team sucks less. And at the end of the day, I think the Cowboys will just
I do
suck less.
also think, like, I think the one edge I give the Giants is the coach.
Yes, I would say that. Everything else, I think I give to the Cowboys at this point.
That's fair.
Because I just...
Here's my thing. This is like a real thing, though, for me. Dak is coming off of his second major lower body injury.
Yeah, that's fair.
And the first time, his mobility tanked. So what he will look like now is a concern.
Yeah. I don't know.
So,
I guess that is something we're going to have to wait and see.
Those are the only things that potentially I give in the Giants' favor.
Fair. I guess we're just going to have to...
Yeah. All right. Well, did you have anything else in the sports world?
I don't think I do. It's been...
Okay. We've covered a lot.
Yeah. We did a lot today. It's good.
Good. It gets us back on track.
Yeah. So looking to next week, as we mentioned, we'll move on to the NFC South for our teams. I believe we'll end up doing the Buccaneers and then Falcons, I think is the order. So that'll be next week. Buccaneers and Falcons. We will do a lead up to the draft, what we think will happen. Hopefully get a mock draft in, kind of give you our thoughts there, what each team will probably end up doing. And then hopefully next week we also can do something on draft night, something fun there. So
see if we can't have a little fun.
Try to get a live stream or just like a live reaction thing going on. So that is our plan for next week.
Awesome.
So awesome.
I think Brendan kind of alluded to it. I do think our goal is to double up the NFC South.
Yeah.
However, I also know our focal point will be the draft. So
we'll talk a lot about the draft, maybe a bit about playoffs in basketball and hockey, whatever we know then, and then it'll pretty much be draft, and then we'll double up the NFC South, kind of like we did today.
If we don't double up the NFC South, though, it's just a timing thing. So yeah, want to give more focus to the things that matter.
Yeah. So all that being said, make sure to like, subscribe. We are still here.
We are.
So you can keep catching videos. So make sure to subscribe. Leave comments. We are very interested to hear what you think your team is going to do in the draft. Obviously, the draft's one of the best times to be a football fan because it kind of can go either way. So let us know what you think your team is going to do, whether it's the Cowboys, Giants, any other team in the league. Let us know what you think is going to happen. And any other sports-related comments. Bring it.
Anything.
Could be anything. But all that being said, I've been Brendan.
And I've been Dallas.
And this has been a Blocksmith Podcast. Thank you all.